And, the more things change, the more they stay the same. In 1977, Meet the Press had then Prime Minister Pierre-Elliott Trudeau on the broadcast, and it was to discuss the notion of the U.S. annexing Canada. And it was incredible. And I was watching the host. His name escapes me. The host who was setting up the interview with Prime Minister Pierre-Elliott Trudeau was mentioning, Canada and the U.S., we have so much in common. We share the same language. Well, with the exception of Quebec. This is the NBC host saying that and just setting it up like, hey, you never know. And there had been talk. I mean, you go back to the 1970s and what was happening, Jimmy Carter was president, right? From 76 to 80. There was a lot of stuff happening at that time. So what an incredible piece of tape that Meet the Press unearthed over the weekend with even 50 years ago, the Prime Minister of Canada having to discuss the possibility of an American annexation of Canada. All right, here we have Diane Francis on the line, author of the book Merger of the Century, Why Canada and America Should Become One Country. Diane, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So you wrote this book back, when was it, 2013?
2013, I predicted everything that's happening.
What?
I did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Tell our listeners about your predictions then and how they compare to today.
Well, basically, I compared the cultures, the societies, political systems, economic stuff between the U.S. and Canada, kind of historically as well as up to the point. And my general thesis was that Canada was weak, could have been a lot stronger, and had better get stronger, and was a laggard in military expending, so its security was a problem. And that it should, really get with the program as far as military spending, meeting NATO commitments, as well as toughening up the screening for immigration, which is a security issue. But most importantly, that we should have governments that lower taxes and get our resources developed. We had all this environmental nonsense from Trudeau, compliment to the World Economic Forum in Davos. He was one of the global leaders, and so was, I think, Carney was too, and others. But they completely took the religion, and they have impeded the natural and responsible resource development of the Canadian endowment, and therefore we have lost ground in terms of economic importance, international stature, because we have no military. And I said, if we don't do those things, the Americans in a few years will get fed up with our military stuff and just gobble us up. Bingo.
Well, you certainly.
It's on page 170, as I recall.
You've been Nostradamus on the subject, as it turns out, Diane.
Yes, and also, I write. I'm syndicated in the Post media, and I've been writing dozens, if not hundreds, of columns about how we are laggards in military expending. The Arctic is empty. We can't even protect our own borders. Blah 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 blah. All of this has fallen on deaf ears.
But so I'm looking at your last column for the National Post, Diane, and the headline is, "I wrote the book on a Canada-U.S. merger. Trump can't afford us." So we may be in a weak position, but it seems like, well, it's still easier said than done, any type of annexation.
Well, annexation, if he wants to pay for us, and I was comparing it to the money that they were talking about that Greenland was worth. But, if they invade or if they otherwise rattle our cage to the point where, we have to enter into a shotgun marriage of some kind, he didn't have to pay a dime. But why I wrote that, and it was in my book, because my thesis was that Canada is going to be gobbled up if it doesn't change. And if it doesn't change, and it's unlikely it will change, then we better maybe preemptively propose some kind of a merger where we get full value for what we're worth. Because if it's a shotgun marriage, we're not going to get value. And that's when I came up with the help of an investment banker, a resource evaluation of the U.S. and Canada as of 2013. We were worth $17 trillion worth, more than they were. And, that doesn't mean anything if someone's not going to pay it or can't afford it. The point that I was making was we have a valuable country here, and, we better know what we're worth if they come calling.
Diane, we're pressed on time here, but let me ask you one more question before I have to let you go. And that is Mark Carney, Prime Minister Mark Carney. He was elected, right, to handle this U.S.-Canada relationship. How has he done? And has he put us in? Has he changed things? Has he put us in a better position than when he took office?
No, he made a huge gaffe. Let's remember he was elected and he has no experience as a politician. And he's surrounded by the same people that were advising Trudeau, and we know how that's ended. The point is he made a very high-profile speech at Davos saying that the middle nations should not be pushed around by the U.S. He didn't say particularly that, but the hegemons, that we should get together, band together, and be able to, prevent being pushed around. That is not something diplomatically that the leader of a country should ever do. He made a huge mistake. Trump's people exploded. I would have exploded. I was appalled. It was just a rookie error that may cost us dearly, and it is already costing us dearly.
Dan, I have to leave it there. Really insightful stuff, and I thank you so much for the time this morning.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
That's Diane Francis, writes extensively for the National Post. And again, that book from 2013, Merger of the Century. Shall be looking at that up this morning. Why Canada and America should become one country. When we return on the show In Transit for this Monday, we'll be speaking to the managing director of Canada's high-speed rail project, Martin Imblot. And we'll get an update on high-speed rail. Things are moving seemingly in the right direction. That's next.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.